Sucker Punch head image via Warner Brothers. 5 years after 302 years before Man of Steel, director Zack Snyder co-wrote and directed a 2011 dark fantasy adventure film that caused a bit of controversy. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Now, Sucker Punch, which Snyder co-wrote with Steve Shibuya, is streaming on Paramount+. Sucker Punch stars Emily Browning, American Gods, as Baby Doll, who accidentally shoots her sister during a struggle with her abusive stepfather, who also murdered Baby Doll's mother. When he finds out that the mother left everything to her daughters in her will, he takes Baby Doll to a mental hospital where he tries to have her lobotomized. Baby Doll retreats into her own fantasy world where, instead of an asylum, she is in a brothel and the other patients are sex slaves. 5 years after 302 years before Man of Steel, director Zack Snyder co-wrote and directed a 2011 dark fantasy adventure film that caused a bit of controversy. Now, Sucker Punch, which Snyder co-wrote with Steve Shibuya, is streaming on Paramount+. The film, which currently has a 22% critic score and a 47% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, was met with criticism when it was released, particularly for its depiction of women. At the time, many critics said the movie was misogynistic in its treatment of sexual violence. Baby Doll makes friends with 4 other women, namely, Rocket, Jenna Malone, Blondie, Vanessa Hudgens, Amber, Jamie Chung, and Sweet Pea, Abby Cornish. Blue, Oscar Isaac, who actually works in the mental institution, but in Baby Doll's fantasy is a mobster, tries to sell her virginity to the High Roller, played by Jon Hamm. Carla Gugino co-stars as Dr. Vera Gorski. In 2024, Snyder said that Sucker Punch was the only movie he would fix if he had the chance. "The only movie I would change is Sucker Punch, because it never really got finished correctly," the filmmaker said at that time. "Even the director's cut is not really the correct cut. It's really just an extended version. If I had the chance, I would fix that movie." Snyder added that he has the actual footage, but needs the budget and the go-ahead to move forward with it. "I have the footage already shot. They just have to let me put it together," he explained. "We ask every now and then. We have to ask again. I think there has to be a window when no one's got the movie." Snyder has since gone on to direct Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, 2017, Justice League, 2019, and the Snyder Cut of Justice League, which was released in 2021. He recently directed the action-fantasy Rebel Moon series on Netflix, as well as the animated Twilight of the Gods Netflix series. Maddie Lucas of the Lexington Dispatch wrote on Rotten Tomatoes that Sucker Punch was misogyny disguised as empowerment. Andrea Granville called it a tawdry, repellent action fantasy. Christopher Tukey of the Daily Mail said the movie seems to be made for 15-year-old boys by a sad middle-aged man whose only experience of life is from violent comics, shoot-'em-up video games, and online pornography. As things stand, the DCU is dead, and James Gunn's DCU has taken its place. Justice League was supposed to be a middle chapter of Zack Snyder's vision, following Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, with a full JL trilogy planned. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. But those plans are gone, and so is the Snyderverse. Some faint calls to restore the 300 directors superhero universe can still be heard, but they're nowhere near as strong as the push for the Snyder Cut. Around the turn of the decade, Justice League Snyder Cut was a defining film event, but 4 years later, it feels like much ado about nothing. What was once seen as a revolutionary fan movement that pushed for greater creative autonomy now seems like a fad, especially considering how things played out afterward. Without a doubt, the Snyder Cut is better than the 2017 Justice League, which Joss Whedon belatedly took over and fans mockingly called Justice League. Snyder's extended version fixed many of the original's problems, but it came at a cost. So, the question remains, was all the fanfare behind #release the Snyder Cut worth it 4 years later? The answer is a resounding no. The Snyder Cut might seem like a fan-driven victory, but it set a dangerous precedent. Unlike the calls for the eventual Superman 2 Richard Donner cut release, this campaign became toxic, leading to harassment, boycotts, and even death threats against studio executives. A Rolling Stone report from July 2022 revealed that fake accounts helped push the movement. It also claimed that in June 2020, Snyder had allegedly made a menacing remark toward producers Jeff Johns and John Berg. "Jeff and John are dragging their feet on taking their names off my cut. Now, "I will destroy them" on social media. This whole fiasco might also be indirectly responsible for the DCU's demise. Fans pushed for a sequel Warner Brothers never planned, which made it harder for the studio to chart a clear course. It also exposed how mismanaged the DCU had been from the start. The $70 million spent on the Snyder Cut didn't boost HBO Max subscriptions in the long run. Adding this to the original movie's $300 million cost, the studio likely saw the Snyderverse as a financial dead end. As things stand, the DCU is dead, and James Gunn's DCU has taken its place. Justice League was supposed to be a middle chapter of Zack Snyder's vision, following Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, with a full JL trilogy planned. But those plans are gone, and so is the Snyderverse. Some faint calls to restore the 300 directors' superhero universe can still be heard, but they're nowhere near as strong as the push for the Snyder Cut. Ultimately, the Snyder Cut made Zack Snyder even more divisive as a filmmaker. It is true that his extended cuts of Watchmen and Batman v Superman are seen as better than their theatrical versions. Weirdly, he designed an approach with the Rebel Moon films that had original and director's cuts planned from the beginning, which makes no sense if you have full creative control from the jump. Both versions of the Netflix films were critically panned, and Snyder's longer R-rated cuts were only slightly better. In all honesty, this whole charade is getting exhausting. Zack Snyder's version of Justice League may be better than what Joss Whedon made, but let's be honest, that's not a high bar. This may be an unpopular opinion among DCU or Snyder fans, but it needs to be said, the Snyder Cut isn't the cult classic masterpiece they believe it to be. If Justice League felt like a bad movie, this was simply a longer, slightly improved, but still mediocre miniseries version of it. It might have worked as a filler film to continue the DC Snyderverse, but clearly, that's not where we are today. Essentially, Whedon took Snyder's original vision for Justice League and cut it down to please the studio. Warner Brothers wasn't happy with Snyder's direction, especially after the backlash to Batman v Superman. The result? A messy, rushed, and sometimes incoherent film. Characters and major events were thrown in with no setup, and the story relied too much on weak excuses and coincidences, making it hard to care about anything. Snyder's 4-hour cut did show just how much was brutally removed. The new script added some context, fixed plot holes, and made the story feel more complete. A lot was lost in Whedon's version, especially in terms of character development. Cyborg finally got a real backstory and arc here, while The Flash and Aquaman became a little more likable. It was certainly enough to give Barry Allen his standalone outing and Arthur Curry his sequel, but let's not go there. The new version also made Ben Affleck's Batman feel more focused and less exhausted. Superman's resurrection is mostly the same, but gives him more time to settle back in. Of course, the black suit still looks dapper on Henry Cavill. The finale, though imperfect, is a big step up from the rushed, overblown CGI mess from before. It also showed that SN